as Amrita is going to help me, it's a pleasure to be here in India. This is my second visit to India, and I absolutely love it. It's a fascinating country with a long history, and people are amazing. They're kind, they're smart, and they are actually very spiritual. And I think it's unique. So you need to hold on to what you have good, and you need to look at the future, but also keep in mind the advantages and the benefits that you have in this country. A combination of both is really what's going to unlock your future. What I'm here to talk today is really the new energy consumer and the landscape in which utilities have to engage the new energy consumer and the new energy customer. I have two capacities. I'm a director of the organization called Smart Grid Canada, and it's an organization, as Alex mentioned, a trade association made of the entire spectrum of the smart grid industry in Canada. And we do a lot of work internationally with the India Smart Grid Forum and the Global Smart Grid Association. But I'm also, in Canada, I do energy partnerships for a new company in the IoT space. It's a smart thermostat manufacturer. And I'm helping utilities engage consumers and engage the technology that some technology companies can bring. I find that the reason we're really doing this is that the landscape is changing for the utility industry, and you all know that. It's the same around the world. You see policy driver on one end, job growth, green energy, climate change. You see an active energy customer that actually it's used to have Airbnb, used to have a lot of new technology at its fingers, and wants the same type of agility from the electric utility. And these two trends actually push the electric utilities to look at how can they really diversify what they offer to their customers. How can they actually stay competitive in this space, engage customers, and also probably make more money into the future as the price of electricity and the actual commodity is coming down in certain parts of the world. May not be the case for India, but who knows what the future will unveil. And what I'm here to show is that actually energy partnerships is a really good opportunity for utilities to look at. And when I say energy partnerships, I talk specifically about energy partnerships with technology companies. In Canada, a key policy driver actually in Ontario was the closing of the coal-fired plant, which was actually mandated by the government, and Alex spoke to that. And that was a huge, it was actually the largest climate change initiative in North America. And we're talking about 8,000 megawatts of generation. That particular gap, when it was closed, the government looked at it at energy efficiency and conservation as a way of closing the gap. It also looked at renewable energy brought into the grid and another way of closing the gap. So we talked about 10,700 megawatts by 2018, and we're actually right on track for that. And that was a significant amount of renewable energy, about 36% to come into the grid for the Ontario province of Canada. The other change that is happening, which I talked about, is the active customer. Now, customers want more from their electric utilities, and we are blessed with electricity. We're blessed with electricity. Sometimes actually doesn't work because we have ice storms, and the trees fall into the into the electric lines, and we didn't have electricity for about a week. But generally speaking, we do have quite a lot of reliability of electricity, and that's something that Canada is very sort of lucky with. But at the same time, what we see is that, as Alex spoke to it, customers want to be off the grid. They think it's better. It speaks to their sense of independence. Also speaks to the fact that electric utilities in Canada may have not done the best jobs of engaging the customers and talking to them because they didn't have to, but now they have to in the future. We've run a survey across the country, and we asked from all the players in the industry that can actually provide connected smart home, connected devices. Where do you want to get your energy services and connected devices from? And the number one was a technology company, which made sense, but the number two was actually electric utility. And that was a little bit of a surprise to us because we thought telecommunication companies would actually be the second choice. So that made us think that the partnership between an electric utility and a technology company actually would really be a best case scenario for this time being. In Ontario, we could actually do customized billing through time of use rates. We have mandatory smart meters across the entire province. We talked about 4.5 million homes, so that's in addition to commercial and industrial customers. And we also have mandatory time of use rates. So at any point in time, customers pay 3 type of rates based on the time of the day. And it's off-peak, on-peak, and mid-peak. What we're actually looking forward in the future is to try to optimize the HVAC, the heating and cooling of a house to the time of use rate, so people can actually save money without necessarily taking action directly, and I'll show you. Another example of a diversified offering is that you see a utility in, this is not in Canada, it's in North America, in the United States. It's called Green Mountain Power. They're a small utility in Vermont, and they're very innovative. They're trying to find out ways to engage their customers by bringing a Tesla power battery, and it's a pilot, but they're looking at providing that service to their customers. They're also looking at doing demand response with water heaters to try to connect the water heater to bring them into a demand response pilot as well. Another example of a diversified offering, this comes from a utility in Ontario. It's called Power Stream. Sorry, now I think you could hear me better. What Power Stream wanted to do, they looked at creating a virtual power plant for a number of homes in their territory. It's a small pilot. We're talking about 20 homes, but these particular homes would actually have net metering infrastructure. They would have energy storage. They would have solar plants, and these particular assets were actually owned by the utility and rented to the customers. And the idea is that the reduction in energy prices and the saving on the bill would actually pay for these particular assets on a longer time. It's still not financially viable right now, but there's a lot of learning and there's a lot of interest. And this particular type of offering obviously applies to more affluent households, but as the prices come down, this could be something that utility can look at it to deploy on a larger scale. An example of a new sort of opportunity that utilities can look at it, it's called demand response. And I assume everybody is familiar with demand response. What is new, demand response has been done in North America for quite a while and around the world. What's fairly new is actually to do residential demand response, and that it is to engage the customer to reduce their energy consumption in particular points in time when is needed, when a peak shaving is needed. And a smart thermostat company such as Nest Labs, they offer that through their services for energy partnership. They call it rush hour rewards because they try to kind of speak to customers in a way that they understand what it is. Demand response, if you're not in the industry, you might not know. But if you say, well, we're talking about rush hour rewards, it's almost like you're stuck in traffic. The electric utility is stuck in traffic at that moment in time, and you're helping them consume less. The demand response, the way it works, and what's actually innovative, it's made simple for the customer. They don't have to stop using the energy at that moment in time. The thermostat in its own has a customer profile for each home and knows how much to actually save without impacting the people's comfort and the temperature. There are custom algorithms for each homes, and that data is made available to utilities to really aggregate the loads as they actually want and they deem need. And then what's important is that customers always retain control. And it's a hard selling point, to be honest with you, to electric utilities, because they do want to control the load. But when we're telling them that the satisfaction of the program is so high that people actually don't want to change and don't want to come out of the program, and we're showing them the results, they understand. So this is how it works. What the thermostat does and the technology does, it actually pre-cools the home to a temperature that it just makes sense. So then the actually load shifting occurs. The temperature in the home is actually, it's comfortable. And there are thermal profile for each home. So we know if a home is, we call it leaky, if it takes longer to heat or cool, or if it takes less time to heat or cool. And that algorithm is actually designed for each particular home. The results are excellent. We had over 55% cooling reduction. It's primarily done on the air conditioning and in North America. And we had only 10% of the people ended up changing the temperature and basically disqualifying themselves from the demand response event, which is actually quite, it's very, very good compared to a 40% average for normal demand response residential previously. And these are example of pilots that we've done with 2 utilities in Ontario, Hydro One and Energy Plus. And over 90% of people achieve participation. Another example of a program that is done through the Smart Thermostat is called, again, it's a time of use integration. Some jurisdictions in North America have time of use, not a lot of them, but a few have. Ontario is one of them. And how do you actually tie the smart thermostat, which is the heating and cooling of the home, with the time of use rates that exist and they're set up by the government? You could do it as a customer, but sometimes if the technology does it for you in a way that it's engaging, it's easy, it's simple, it's actually much better. And an example of how we call it, instead of saying time of use, we actually call it time of savings, because people don't think from a utility speak language, but they think, from their perspective. So we would say time of use rates, we translated time of saving. It's time for you to save some money if you actually consume less or more, depending on the day on the time of the day and the rates. Instead of saying participate in the demand response, we say come into a rush hour rewards. And rush hour rewards is actually translated for country to country, for using terminology that makes sense to the people in that end. And these are examples of customer engagement and branding that we've seen they're actually quite successful by partnering with different technology companies. Ultimately, some smart thermostats and other technology companies, they look at the home and they look at enabling the home for a consumer to make it more connected, to make it relevant for the consumer, but from a electric grid perspective and from a utility perspective, to put it at the center of the grid planning. And that's what we've seen, and that's sort of the tendency that we see with the distributed energy resources coming into play in North America. And this is it. Thank you.